fortunate here at Sanford to own and farm this extraordinarily high-quality vineyard. That's the starting point. Own-rooted vines planted 50 years ago in this, what could arguably called a perfect environment for growing Chardonnay and Pinot Noir.
The two vineyards that we're working with, Sanford and Benedict and La Rinconada, they are side by side, both planted alongside north-facing slopes that are gradually sloping down towards the San Ynez River. The biggest differentiation between our vineyards and perhaps others in the Santa Rita Hills is that we're on this unique land formation of Monterey Shale, which is a really hard marine-based rock. About 10,000 years ago, when you're looking at our backdrop, there used to be this hillside that is no longer there. It crashed down, and it most likely happened because of these natural springs along the hillside of the slopes. We have these horizontal wells here on the property, and during our droughts, it was extremely beneficial. Having own-rooted vines here that are 40% of the Sanford and Benedict estate, they're tapping into this natural water. So we have irrigation, but we really don't need to use it all that often. We have very diverse soils because of this landslide. It happened primarily here at Sanford and Benedict, and a little bit of Monterey Shale is deposited into the hillsides of La Rinconada. We have a very diverse mix of marine-based soils here. High in organic matter here at Sanford and Benedict, and at La Rinconada is a little bit more Santa Lucia shale loam, and you can tell just in the color, it's a little bit more golden, but there's flows of diatomaceous earth just in unique sites within La Rinconada hillside. As you slope down the hillside of La Rinconada, we're getting more into our Chardonnay territory, which is where Chardonnay just really comes alive. We have a little bit more water holding capacity, which makes it ideal for Chardonnay. And then also the vines are a little bit more protected from the hillside. Whereas a Pinot Noir, it can use a little bit more of a challenge in its growth, and so it's a little bit more exposed, but what that does is give it a little bit more enticing qualities. Sometimes a little thicker skins, but decreasing the yield, and the fruit that hangs on is absolutely concentrated.
With these sites, it's very important to sometimes have the power to do nothing and wait for the vintage to come to you. If you're there throughout the season, you can pick up on these cues, and that informs all of our decisions, not just from the canopy management to soil management, to how we're treating the vines, to how much whole cluster we're using, to when we're picking, and to how a site reacts, if it's an introvert or an extrovert, if it likes a lot of contact or if it likes you to pull back from it. So all of those things you can only get by paying attention and being a good listener instead of trying to domineer the site. And we don't sit back and do nothing, but knowing when to do something as opposed to consistently doing the wrong thing is essential to us making these wines. All vineyards, all sites, even my garden, has a personality to it, and understanding how to get the most out of that site, out of that personality is really key to letting these wines express themselves the best. For La Rinconada and Sanford and Benedict to really be expressive in the way that we know them, to identify their personalities has been essential, and it's something that we work on all the time. And it sounds a little, mystical in a lot of ways, but it's very important to understand whether one is an introvert or one is an extrovert. We know that Chardonnay at Sanford and Benedict is very introverted. It doesn't react well to stirring the lees. It doesn't react well to picking very late. And that touches on how we work the soil, the different exposures to the canopy and the fruit. the choices in cooperage, the amount of contact that the lees has with the wine, the temperature that it ferments at. All of those things are very essential to knowing if you have a site that's more introverted or extroverted.
To me, the fruit coming off of our vines is extremely complex and layered. And there's a depth to the palate and to the aromas that I haven't found elsewhere in the world. And it's really interesting to open up a bottle of Sanford and Benedict or La Rinconada Pinot Noir from a different producer and just know it tastes like home. Like I get this sense of place, and what that is it's hard to like bottle up into a tiny little nutshell, but for me it's dark cherry, it's a little bit of white pepper, it's a balance of earth and spice. I think that there's a little bit of this ruggedness to our wines that kind of enhances the finesse of it. Sometimes you'll get a little bit of floral components to the Pinot Noir, and it really comes down to our climate. I think that's first and foremost about the Santa Rita Hills, is that we have only 3 to 4 hours each day to ripen the fruit. And because it's such a short window during the day that we go up into the 80s, that it takes a longer time for the fruit to develop. It's actually elongated because we're coming out of bud break early, and it just takes a longer time to get to the ideal ripeness. And so we're picking our fruit in September or October, and that extra hang time is what really presents a wine of depth, and there's a density to the color and the texture without having to over extract it on the fermentation side. So it's just happening naturally out in the vineyard.
And it's not about good chemistry. It's about the vineyards. Own quality vineyards, farm them thoughtfully, focus on winemaking as a highlight to the place, as opposed to winemaking to steer the wines in a particular direction in terms of flavor profile. We have this unbelievable resource, this extraordinary vineyard, 50 years old, that is as healthy can be. And we're farming it in a way that's really quite extraordinarily thoughtful. Not just to produce high quality fruit, but also because our responsibility is to hand it over to the next generation. And I believe that my responsibility is to hand it over to the next generation in better condition than we found it.